Tom Waddle, great hair. Former wide receiver, now working at ESPN 1000 in Chicago. Hair looks good, Tommy.
Thanks, man. I thought you maybe say good hands, not real fast, not real athletic, but could catch the ball, but I certainly wasn't expecting good hair.
Okay, would you rather have good hands or good hair?
Good hands. Come on. Good hands.
Yeah, but good hands are only going to take you so far in life. You can
Not really. What if I have to, fix my car? You got to be able to work a wrench. You got to work around a house with a hammer. You got to be able to talk demonstratively, and you got to get your point across by waving your hand. I mean, look, I wore a helmet for half my life. No one knew what my hair looked like.
You know who had the baddest hair, though, was Fred Biletnikoff. That was the first guy that had the hair coming out of his helmet. And
Dan,
with the Raiders.
I got to tell you that I don't have a lot of autographs, but when I went to the Super Bowl several years ago, he's the only guy that I sought to get his autograph. And I still have it on this little 3x5 card because to me, he was the coolest thing in all of sports for just that. He wore the stickum, and he had the flowing locks out of the back of his hair. If you go back to my Boston College days, you'll see me sporting the Billy Ray Cyrus achy, breaky, mistakey mullet, and that was a direct, response to what I saw from Fred Biletnikoff back in the day.
Well, that's the only reason why I wanted to have you on, Tom. Thanks for joining us.
Got it. Great to talk to you, Dan. Always good.
Was that a fireable offense for Mark Trestman Sunday night?
I think so. I was a little surprised yesterday that there wasn't somebody that was shown the door again. And look, I'm not a guy that calls for other people's jobs a lot based on my own experience in the NFL, where I was told to leave 4 or 5 times. So, I mean, I understand how competitive this league is and how hard it is to win in this league. But I think the most indicting part of this whole disaster is that's the performance they gave coming out of the bye. I mean, they had an extra week to prepare for their biggest rival, and that's what you do after laying an egg in Foxborough. I mean, granted, you're playing against really good teams in the Patriots and the Packers and Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, but, no focus, no discipline, no energy. I was a little surprised. I wasn't surprised that Mark Trestman wasn't let go, but I was surprised that maybe Mel Tucker wasn't fired. And look, maybe it would have just been a symbolic gesture, but this is a big boy league where accountability means everything. And that defense has given up 30 points in the Mark Trestman era 3 times. 50 points 3 times in the Mark Trestman era. It's just been a disaster.
I want to see emotion. Could you imagine Ditka if he had to go through something like that?
Well, I mean, I played for Mike for 4 years, and I was scared to death of him then, and I'm scared to death of him now. I don't think that means everything, and I know there are a lot of people here in Chicago that want to see a really demonstrative coach. They want to see somebody breaking a chalkboard and throwing something across the room. Look, I just want to see someone who's leading his team to victories. Big Bill Belichick, probably inside the 4 walls of the Patriots facility, gets after guys, but that's not the demonstrative kind of personality he has on the sidelines. It just, to me, there doesn't seem to be a presence with this organization, and that's what your coach has to have. I mean, Lovey wasn't a yeller and a screamer, but he had a presence inside the locker room, and I question at this point whether or not Mark Trestman has that presence inside the walls of Hallis Hall and commands the attention of his players.
Yeah, but Tom, you have all that talent on offense. It's one thing that we look at the defense and look, there's no stars over there anymore. But the offense has the stars. They loaded up. They thought this was the next wave. The same mistake the Atlanta Falcons made. We're going to go all in on offense and, look at what you have here. At least be good on offense, and they haven't been great on offense.
Well, you just nailed the greatest frustration for me and most others here in Chicago. We were only hoping for middle of the pack on this defense. We realized there were still warts on that side of the football, and they tried to address their pass rush via free agency in the offseason. But we were just hoping for middle of the pack because this offense was going to take us to the promised land. Like last year when they scored 28 points per game and tied for second highest scoring team in the league. That's where the frustration's been because offensively, as much talent is in that huddle and as many resources have been put into this offense. I think that there's only two other teams in the NFL that have actually spent more on their offense than the Bears, and the return on that investment is nothing. They're not taking care of the football. They've turned it over 19 times, and as much as I've wanted to support Jay over the course of his time here in Chicago, he's turned it over 15 times so far this year, and that's tied for most turnovers in the league with a rookie quarterback, Blake Bortles, in Jacksonville. And it's been a really frustrating first 9 games of the season. And I got to tell you, in this town, apathy is overtaking anger, and that's not a good thing.
He's Tom Waddle, ESPN 1000, former NFL wide receiver, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. Does Jay Cutler come on your show each week?
He does. He alternates with Brandon Marshall. We had Brandon Marshall yesterday, and Jay split it up 8 and 8. So, I mean, listen, when Jay has come on with us, he has accepted responsibility for his mistakes.
But is he helping or hurting, Tom?
His play right now is not helping. There's no question about it. Look, Dan, I look at the quarterback position. Job one is to take care of the football because you touch it on every single play. You've got to value the pigskin more than life itself when you're on the field. And the second thing you got to do is you've got to make a difference. You're going to make mistakes. If you throw it 35, 40 times a game, guys are going to throw picks. Andrew Luck throws picks. Good quarterbacks, they throw picks, but what they do is they bounce back from that, intra-game adversity. And that hasn't happened with this team. You can't turn the football over at the rate they're turning it over and expect to win games, especially when your defense is a liability. So I know that there is a ton of talent locked in to that Jay Cutler jersey and body, and I was very optimistic that the marriage of Jay Cutler and Mark Trestman was going to ultimately get that potential out, and the potential was going to intersect with the production. But through 25 games, we've seen some really high highs and some really low lows, and I'm not much for roller coasters, and I'm getting a little nauseous right now.
As a former receiver, you looked at the Jimmy Graham play, and while I think Parrish Cox, took a little bit of a dive there, I don't think Graham had to do anything. And the fact that he's 6'8", he would have outjumped everyone. I think that they would have won that game if he. And I don't know what you do. Do you put your hands up as you're running down the field, or I thought he could have prevented the contact or the flop there, and he could have won the game for the Saints.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're 6'1" and 185 pounds and limited like me, you cheat on every single play. But Jimmy Graham doesn't have to do that. I'm with you. I think Jimmy just could have stopped, jumped in the air, and probably caught that football. But anytime a receiver extends his arm flat out, straight out, and you get past that 90-degree angle with your arm, that's exactly what the officials are looking for. Same thing happened with Steve Smith in Baltimore in their loss against Cincinnati. Steve Smith extended his arm, and once an official sees that, going to throw the flag. So you got to find a way to creatively keep that arm in, and as you mentioned, with what Jimmy's got going for him physically, just go straight up and get it.
Did you think that was offensive pass interference?
Yeah. And I know that's odd of a former receiver to say, but it is by the definition of the rule. I thought that the Steve Smith play was correctly called. I thought this play was correctly called.
Your favorite white wide receiver cliche is what?
Wow. There are just so many of them. No. My favorite, he can catch it, but he ain't going anywhere with it afterwards. Dan Hampton dubbed me small, slow, and friendly. And it said, bro, that's no combination for this NFL. I said, man, I'm just trying to get by. It was so funny. When I played against the Falcons years ago, and Deion Sanders became a friend of mine, when I worked at NFL Network, and, I tell the story. Deion said to me after a game, we beat them when he was with the Falcons. After the game, he played me all game long, and he came up to me and he says, Waddle. I said, yes, Mr. Sanders, because it was only my second year in the league. And he said to me, you're the best white wide receiver I've ever played against. So I go running into the locker room, and I'm flying high, saying, hey, I had a touchdown. We had 50, 60 yards receiving, and Deion thinks I'm the best white wide receiver he's ever played against. And I get in the locker room. And my buddy John Mangum, who was a lot like me, small, slow, and friendly, was a safety for us. He said, hey, great game, Waddle. I said, yeah, that's awesome. He said, you had a bunch of catches. I said, yeah. but you're never gonna guess what happened. He said, what? I said, Dion after the game said I was the best white wide receiver he ever played against. And Mangum looks at me and says, well, there's you, there's Ricky Prohl, there's Eddie McCaffrey. There's only 3 of you in the league. So settle down, big fella. So that's kind of my claim to fame in 6 mediocre years in the NFL, Dan.
Deceptively fast with great hair, great hands. He's Tom Waddle of ESPN 1000. Tell Sylvia I said hello. Good to talk to you again, Tom.
Thanks, Dan. Be well.
All right. Tom Waddle.